live, you said?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Okay. I want to welcome you to your POA Board's monthly meeting, and I want to wish all of you a happy St. Patrick's Day, and I hope that the green beard does not run out before I get out of this meeting. Your board continues to operate under its COVID protocols and will do so for the foreseeable future, so as to protect meeting participants. Board meeting participants are distanced and attendance is limited. Today, one board member is attending remotely. Even in this era of restricted attendance at meetings, transparency is extremely important to the board, as is community feedback. To facilitate these objectives, our meeting today is being live streamed, and there is an opportunity for you to comment and ask questions as we go along. We're also recording the meeting, and it'll be posted on the POA website. Before we get started, there has been a change from the state since our last meeting in February. On February 27th, Governor Lee issued Executive Order number 77. They're really getting up there, aren't they? Basically, this extends the state of emergency declaration in Tennessee, as well as the guidance that we've been operating under for many months until April 28th. Hopefully, we'll hear something from him before that, but I'm not hopeful. With that, I need a motion to approve the February 17th, 2021 TVPOA Board meeting minutes as presented.
So moved.
Marty? Who seconded? Bruce? Changes? No changes? Steve can
hear you.
He can hear us? Okay, good. Steve, we can't see you, so you're going to have to voice your approval or disapproval. All those in favor? Steve? Steve, text your vote to...
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
7-0.
You hear him
we
now.
can hear him now.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the CEO report. He's going to talk about any changes to the operations. He's going to give an update about vaccines and talk a little bit about the insurance claim for the Public Works fire.
Thank you, Mr. President. Operationally, from our last report, there's been very little change to affect our operations, but I would like to mention some things that additional services that are going to be offered in April. The Tiki Bar will be opening back up, and also Monday Music at Tenacity will be started again, and that will begin in April. These are all within the guidelines of the Tennessee mandates. Also want to remind everyone, the Wellness Center, they have relaxed afternoon periods from 1 to 5. When I say relax, that means no scheduling. You can kind of free choice come and go. There is a room limitation on the number of participants that can be in a room. Also, from 12 to 1, the facility is closed and they fog the facility to disinfect it. So the staff is keeping in mind that we're not out of the woods yet, that being prudent and sanitary is very important. And also Simon reports and the financials show this, that the rec is starting to see an uptick in usage. They are running 60 to 65 classes a week, and they are noticing that the population is starting to come back out in for usage.
So when did you say that was starting? When they were no longer need to schedule?
That started already.
That started at the last report.
Just in the afternoon.
Afternoon session.
Just in the afternoon. I thought you were saying the morning too. Just in the afternoon.
1 to 5, Marty.
Gotcha. Sir.
Thank you. Also, I want to give a report on the vaccinations that are taking place. I was in contact with Teresa Harrell of the Health Department. She wanted me to advise that starting March 29th, the Health Department is going to a new appointment system. It's VRAS, or its acronym. This system will allow a person to sign up in any county, fill out the necessary information, so when they arrive, All they have to do is sign an iPad and get their shot. We will have this information on our website. I won't try to quote you the website information now, but there's a new website, and it's going to simplify the process and make it easier for getting shots and cut down on the red tape when you arrive to get your shot. Some information on shots themselves. In Loudoun County, 26, the numbers I have got from Ms. Harrell, 26% of the county has had at least one shot, and 13% of the county population has had both doses of their vaccine or are fully immunized, but I don't believe Johnson & Johnson has had any vaccines in Loudoun County. In Kahidi, thanks to Carla and her network out there, the data's, and this is not governmental data, this is Carla data, 365 of the roughly 950 population on the Isle of Kahidi have 365 have had one dose. 158 of those are had both doses or fully immunized, and as I said, approximately 900 is the population there. So we're well on our way for immunization, and that's a very good thing for all concerned as far as health and our demographics. Any questions on the operations or vaccine portion of the report? Just a brief update on the Public Works admin building fire. In summary, the fire occurred February 2nd, 21 of this year. The building was a total loss. We had slight damage to one vehicle from the flames. Given the proximity of the fire and the location of other vehicles and the gasoline and diesel tanks, we're very lucky that things were not worse. The origin was never determined. The external claims investigator said it could not be determined due to the scope of the damage. And I would like to give a compliment to our insurance agency. They were very responsive in this fire. They were out that morning of the incident and reviewing that and filed a claim on our behalf for the fire. The replacement cost is estimated at a little over $200,000 of loss due to building and equipment, and our insurance proceeds is a little over $154,000. And the rebuild of that building, the facility type, the structure, so forth and so on, is to be determined. That is something that Clayton's got in his on his work table to figure out, what we're going to do. But want to congratulate the Public Works team and the work they did on cleanup. I estimated, and I've heard other estimates, but I estimated if we had to pull a contractor in, that would have been a $10,000 to $12,000 cleanup. And the Public Works team did it for about $4,500 and probably did a better job. And that was complete welding, cutting the beams, hauling all the debris off to the dump, selling the scrap metal, turning those funds back into Kevin. I saw him handed a couple $100 in 5s and 10s where they had recycled that money, or that metal back into money, and that was turned in, so kudos to them. But in short, there was no interruption to business operations due to that, and the lessons learned from that process is our managers and all departments are going to do pictorial inventories of their operations every 6 months to have a reference in case that were to happen to their department, their building, their storage facility, what have you. Any questions on that report?
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Winston.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is the Long Range Planning Advisory Committee, and they're going to update us on growth projections.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the board for allowing us to present today. I'm Ed Grolleman. I am the chairman of the Long Range Planning Committee this year. So I'm going to update. We're going to do a little wrap up on our goals for last year and a new 2020 near-term goals tracking, and then we're going to do a revised housing forecast. So these are the goals that we were tasked with last year by the board, and as you see, we're on track to meet 90% of these, and COVID played a part into some of these in delaying and putting some of these on hold, such as recreational department data automation. We've been working on long-range plans with the golf department. We're going to expand that with other departments. That kind of got put a little bit of hold on with COVID also. And we're doing on-data collection. That's some of the stuff I'm going to present today on the housing. Also, we looked at the village censuses from the last census, U.S. Census 2010, and what data we can pull from that, and we're looking to pull data from the new census that will be out in the next few months. So, also we helped the board develop mission, values, and principles, which were adopted last year. The other thing is we're in the process to document a 10-year cycle for capital and budget process. That was one of our recommendations we made in our early plan that was adopted. I thank the board and the departments for doing that. We thought that was an excellent idea all the way through. POA operational excellence review, that has been on hold because of COVID. We're going to possibly pick that up later this year to look at how we can graphically show performance and reviews. Tenacity boat ships, that is on schedule as the board is looking at doing that in the next year. Aesthetics and environment, we worked with the ACC on the Green Book and added the core values and guiding principles for that. And meeting room system was one of our recommendations in 2018 that was implemented that a lot of people are using, and virtual meeting capability, as we're doing today, was one of our recommendations from 2018. So as you see, the long-range planning committee has really made an impact over the last few years with a lot of the recommendations we came through. Any questions so far? Okay. So this is just a little more advanced of the tracking on there, showing where we're at and all the things in one slide. One of the things that we want to talk about is the master plan documentation, which we will be looking more into this year, and that is land use of the master plan and how that's allocated back in the 20 years ago and 30 years ago, and how we can adjust that for the time being. Any questions? Okay. Then I will move into the village housing forecast. First, I'd like to thank marketing and ACC for input. We met with marketing folks about 3 or 4 times on these numbers and they gave us some valuable information, putting our forecasts in, help us adjust the numbers, because if we looked at just straight numbers, they would have been extremely high in a lot of cases compared to, but the input from marketing and other departments and other inputs have really gave us, I think, potential to give some really good forecasts in the village. So we're going to talk about the trends, the methodology, forecasts, and conclusions we got here. Trends. So based on overall demographics for the age group that's in Tellico Village, we looked at those numbers nationally, and it does look like that's going to remain strong until 2030 and maybe level off or even drop a little bit at that point in time. Because a lot of the older millennials are actually starting to phase into this group with the baby boomers. Any questions? Mm-mm. No? Okay. Housing trends. We are seeing more people moving into Tennessee in 2020 than any other state. They're the #1 state for U-Haul one-way deliveries. They're migrating away from other urban areas to more rural areas. We've seen home construction in Tellico Village increase since 2011. Last year, 208 building permits were issued in 2020, which is considerable amount. Home resales were at 6.4% in 2020, a 6.6 average since 2015. So that is a really good resale rate. We see that may be reduced in the future. We'll show that later because of supply. So, methodologies. So the marketing data that we gave is typically there's historical from 2009 to 2020, resales, building permits, and then total households, which is, you know, additional new homes and resales. So, forecasting, we're going to forecast resales, new homes, total homes, and new households, which is the total resale of new homes. Okay. And we've come up with 3 different scenarios. We figured we were looking at this, one scenario doesn't really give a complete picture to the board. It's like that, so we had a variety of different inputs that each scenario has slightly different. So we wanted to see, with all this data that we gathered, what's the impact? So we decided to come up with 3 different scenarios here. One is the construction limited scenario. That limits permits or buildings up to 210 per year, which if you looked at last year, we had 208. Buyers are waiting roughly the same amount as average as homes under construction. So they're waiting within a year that houses are going to be built. We went out and talked to a couple builders and contractors in here, and the 210 limit basically came from them. They're saying because of the limitations in weather, materials, and contractors, unless there's a huge influx of additional contractors in the area, that we are pretty much at our limit to build what we've built in the last year. So now you may be a little more, and it also bears out if you look at people looking to build now, they're telling us, they're being told 16 to 18 months before that house is being delivered now, if you want to do a new construction here in the village. So that's one factor that we brought into looking at all this. The next one is permit limited, and basically that's saying, okay, the home construction model, they bring in more contractors, they bring in more builders, they have more materials available. What would that be like if we did that, and that scenario look at? So that is one of the next key factor scenarios we built in. And then demand limited. If there's a decline in home in construction and resales, what would that look like, and what would that impact to us over the time period, the next 10 years? Any questions on that? Okay. So our model tracks is dynamic as time evolves, and sold, unsold, listed, unlisted, and more accurate than linear series methods with just if you took the straight numbers of the sales and projected off of that. And a model spikes in supply and demand. You can show spikes in that. Okay. And a forecast. So if you look at this chart, you're going to see the construction limited is going out to 2034 is a steady gain if that was to continue. And also with the permit limited, which is slightly less, you know, there. And the demand limited drops off. That is projecting that after this year there'd be a decline in sales and built. But we're already seeing that that is not true with the amount of permits that we're seeing coming at this point in the year. So we're looking probably more at one of the other 2 scenarios today based on the latest numbers from the ACC. Right? So new home sales, as you see, we expect that with the construction to lay flat, and then permit, that'll eventually go up if demand is there and more additional contractors and supplies are available. And let me also take a note, supplies of lumber, doors, windows, some of those are 8 to 10 weeks out, these contractors tell me. And this is not just local, it's national. So, okay. household numbers are reflected there, but that's a combination, again, of the resales and of the new home builds. As you see, that kind of tracks up. And then same with total households, is based on the numbers. You see there's no downturn in total households. Based on when you started calculating these numbers, even in an economic downturn, we feel that the households there'll be some sales, there'll be new people moving in here because of the economic advantages of Tennessee, Tellico Village, and the things they bring to it. Our conclusions. Based on these three scenarios, so the different levels of build-out we see. So we see the earliest complete 90% build-out is 2026, and the longest build-out is 2032 when we recalculated these numbers. And this is a drastic change from 3 years ago when long-range planning looked at this. The 2018 numbers of 150 homes, new homes being built, we considered as an outlier looking at the previous 10 years because it was almost double the previous year's build. So we had originally projected build out between 2030 and 2037. So as you see, it's moved in here considerably by the amount of build out we have. So that gives the board considerations that, you know, we're going to reach build out significantly sooner than we do if these trends continue. So,
So I just have a quick question, how those numbers compare to your graphs, because if you look out, just pick one of the graphs, your new households or whatever, but they all seem to be continuously rising. But if there's nothing available, how can they rise if we're at build
well,
out?
that was based off the statistical numbers. We were just putting there, if there were potential more lots or something like that, we could see that increase going.
Okay, so that's not really tied.
That's really not tied to this. These are the hard numbers when we took those graphs.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Okay, sure.
Tracking build out on 3 different scenarios. Have you looked at, because we have a property on
Pat needs to use his mic.
Use your mic.
Your mic on.
press that thing, okay. So you were looking at 3 scenarios, and my question was, and again, you've run the data out, so it's way past build out.
Yeah.
Are we not tracking sold out? In other words, we have properties out there that property owners own that they will build on, but they're paying an assessment fee. We also have POA-owned lots that are not generating assessment fee, but are generating other things that all property owners, like property taxes, have to pay for. So would it be beneficial to track sold-out lots?
Yes, and we did that previously, and we have not, and that is one of the things we're going to go back and add those numbers, those sold-out lot numbers too. That we're going to look at too. Is one of the key things we want to look at as we're looking to put a survey together of property owners that have not built is how long do they anticipate when they're going to build? Because what we're seeing now is a lot of the lots that are being bought or being built out almost immediately.
Right.
But you have existing lots that have been there, nobody's built on for years.
Right.
So are they anticipating selling those or building those out? So that's some of the information that we really want to collect, because you're right, at sold out is when we're not going to collect any more POA fees from
Right,
those lots.
and that means that you have to have a different strategy.
Yes.
Managing your funds and moving forward.
Yep.
But when you build out all sold-out lots, now you're putting a huge tax on your amenities, parking lots, streets, water, sewer.
Exactly.
And there's another strategy that you got. So the difference between the two tells this board how we need to be managing that strategy going forward.
Exactly, and that's our next step, is to figure out what that sold out there is. It's probably a year or two before build out from what we're seeing trends now, but we're trying to gather more data on that. We got hard data today on what's being built and what's being sold. So we're now in the process of how to get all that data on the sold out. we can project some of the numbers by build-out, but we need to go back and actually survey some of those property owners and say, hey, when do you intend to build? If not, or if ever. You know,
Yeah, or best guess.
Or best
Not-
guess,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, but you're right, and both of these look at the board are gonna have some challenges in the next 10 years, both at a sold out and build out, because of limited finances at sold out, and at build out, your utilities and facilities are gonna be more heavily used. The other key thing in there is demographics. So, as the board approved earlier, we're gonna be doing a survey to gather demographics, because as we've seen in the last 3 years, 3,000 different people are in the village. Are they younger, are they older? How they're utilizing the facilities, recreation, you know, restaurants. We need to know that so that as long-range planning and the board needs to know, they can make adjustments for the future for these people.
And then the final thing I wanted to bring up, and again, question to the board, people in the audience, people in the staff, is that my understanding is, what, Carla, over the last 2 years, was it 3,000 new people?
Yeah, 3,000,
That's what he said.
yeah,
That's
well,
what
it's
he
about
said.
3,000, just about 3,000 new people, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so, and then these numbers are showing that that's gonna continue.
Yes.
Very good
Well,
possibility.
there may be some
Yeah.
decline in the
Yeah, I know.
existing home sales because of inventory, but
Yeah, I know, I'm not gonna hold you to the number and then next year bring you back and say, yeah, I didn't do it. But here's the point I wanna make, because there is a subject that goes along with this presentation, is there will be property owners look at this presentation and say, no, it's growing too fast. You need to stop the build. If a property owner owns a piece of property, can this board make them not build on their owned piece of property? No.
Not legally.
Second part is, if the POA, all property owners own a piece of property that we got back from a tax sale that we're not getting an assessment on and are paying county property taxes, Monroe or Loudoun, does it not benefit all of us to sell that piece of property to save all property owners that section of assessment fee that is buying a piece of vacant land that we get no revenue but have expenses tied into? That was the question, yes or no? Yeah, the answer is sell it, right? Okay, because people are gonna look and they're gonna see, and then the sub-question's gonna come up. Let's slow this down.
yeah.
Yes, Bruce.
Going to your point, though, some people that have moved in have been in other areas where they own property and couldn't build. It was because of moratoriums on such things as sewer and water, et cetera. That's why we've been out doing our studies, and that's why we negotiated with LUB to ensure that we won't be faced with those moratoriums, so that we can keep going up.
Okay, thank you, Ed, appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And then the insights into this. 2 of the 3 scenarios predict strong building and resales growth. So we never know what's gonna happen with the economy. You know, interest rates go up, you know, something happens in the area, taxes go up, you know, that could always impact that. Build out occurs sooner than the long-range planning, as we talked about earlier. And new home revenues end sooner than originally projected, you know, so, we recommend, this is both marketing and us together, we recommend we update this housing forecast annually because of the expanded growth that we're seeing here. And, you know, population Tennessee's become the hot property, and so this area has become a really hot area for building, not just in Tellico Village, but the surrounding neighborhoods too.
Beth, you kind of track this stuff annually anyway, right? From a marketing standpoint?
Yep,
Yeah, quarterly.
yep.
Okay.
So, and we're gonna get those numbers and update our forecasts and
Right.
based on the latest data we have, so. And thank you, that's all I have. If there's any more questions.
Any other questions for Ed? Okay, thank you, Ed.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
good job, Ed. Tell your committee, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. So, So that brings me to committee and liaison reports, and the first one up is Susan Kirk for the Government Affairs Advisory Committee.
Good afternoon, board members. Thank you. Our committee appreciates the chance to update you on what's happening. We've been very busy. So I'll just get into it, and as you have questions, go ahead and interrupt me. But on the second slide, you can see that our goals this year, the 5 things that we're looking at keeping an eye on and focusing on. Voter initiative, I think, is going to be pretty much a constant thing for us between elections every 2 years. It's just a matter of either county or nationwide. Redistricting, very important. I'll get to that again in a minute. Outreach and building relationships. Our Committee of 100 membership has proved very valuable as far as networking and information gathering. Property reassessment. Loudoun County is being reassessed this year. Monroe is not. And of course, all of the candidates and offices up for election in 2022. So if you go to the next page, we get into voter initiative and turnout. We're going to continue the push for voter registration. We tried to keep numbers on this. However, it's really hard to tell if the impact on it is being made by us or by a combination of all efforts from the elections office, from drivers' information, licenses, and so forth, because they can register that way. But we have seen a definite increase in voter registration as well as voter turnout. We had 83% participation in the vote in November. So we're going to continue strongly with that. The voter registration forms will still be available throughout the village as they had been. Telegram will be our constant source of information throughout the village on anything that the committee's handling. Whenever we have something of importance, it will be out there. The local elections and why they make such a difference. Excuse me, many of our local elections are actually decided in the primary, and that may not be the case in the areas where our villagers have moved from. For example, any county office, which there are a lot of them coming up in 22, if they are not contested, they are actually decided in the primary, which is May. Very interestingly enough, they still have to appear on the August primary ballot, and they must receive at least 1 vote in order to have won an election. So even though they technically win in May, they still have to appear on the August ballot, but they never go to the November ballot. So it'll be very interesting to watch and see what contested elections we have and what races are decided in the primary. And we're going to be encouraging voting in all primaries. Yes, Pat?
I was just keying and if you were finished,
Sure, go right ahead.
I'll lead up. So I'm going to kind of grill you here.
Go for it.
I'm going to ask you a question. Okay. Candidates go out and campaign, obviously.
Yes.
Okay. Candidates have to spend resources, right? Money.
Yes.
So they go out and fundraise and all that, and their resources are typically limited, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And why do candidates visit certain locations?
Because of the voters.
Okay, so why do they look at the voter rolls and say this neighborhood, that precinct,
It's
this one?
exactly what they do.
Voted, yeah, okay. And when they look at that voter roll and they say 90% of the people in this area voted, where are they going to spend their money to go talk to people and put signs out?
That's right. They're going to come where the voters have active participation.
Okay, so when they look at the voter rolls for Tellico Village and we have 9,000 registered voters, and the county, what do you want to say, mayor, I think, what did he win? He had 8,000 something total votes last time. Maybe
believe
it's
so.
12, something like that. But if you can put out a winning vote for an entire county, sheriff, mayor, property assessor, et cetera, based on the voters in Tellico Village, where do you think these people are going to come ask, what can I do for you?
That's right. They want to know. They want to know where to spend their time knocking on doors. They want to know where to spend time having coffee in people's homes, explaining why they're the person to elect and represent you. And they need to know what you want, what they can do as your representative. You're absolutely right.
Now, would you go back and read number 2 bullet point?
Voter registration forms?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, some people may have read a web page that a person made a comment regarding my voting history. I didn't move here to vote. Honestly, folks, I did not move here to vote. I worked my entire career, and I moved here to retire. I did not track candidates. What'd you say?
I said you failed.
He said I failed, because now I'm working again. I did not track candidates, shame on me. I did not stand there in line on every election unless it typically interested me or I knew the candidate, shame on me. But there are issues in this POA, this Tellico Village, Loudoun and Monroe County, that revolve around our tax dollars, our special taxes that we pay. As an example, do you, the property owners in Tellico Village, realize that we're paying in that special education tax almost $750,000 new revenue every year? Right?
Absolutely.
Good for the education, good for the system. Nobody's griping about that. But when you turn that money around and you get no brush pickup, you get, well, let's just go anything. You get a shred truck. Thank you, Loudoun County. Every $400,000, I believe, Steve, is a percentage in the assessment fee.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. So you want to talk about $8.5 million in property taxes. You want to talk $750,000 in brand new revenue every year with 208 houses being built every year. Would you read number 2 again?
Voter registration.
You got to vote, folks. I was wrong.
Yes, you were. I get to say that, don't I?
Yes,
I
you
agree
do.
with you, Pat.
Over and over and over.
It actually, Pat, goes deeper than that. We turned out 83% of our population for a national election.
Yes.
Our participation in county elections is abysmal. It's more like 25%.
If that.
So basically, we've got a bunch of people that are registered.
And again-
And they're not turning out for the people, for the
And-
elections that are the most effective for us.
And again, one more time, shame on me. I am not picking on the people
Love you,
that did
BG.
not vote. I am not picking on them. I fully understand. But it doesn't take but a minute. You won't see me called out again. And not because I got called out, but because of the value of my vote that adds to your vote, that makes that voice, that makes those limited resources bring that candidate to come ask us, what can I do for you?
You're absolutely correct.
Okay.
Absolutely. The impact of the county races that will happen and how it affects the individual's pocketbook here in the village is tremendous in 2022. And every vote counts. It's going to matter. And we all did retire here to take it easy because we worked all our lives and we want to have a good time. But part of having that wonderful lifestyle is being able to continue it and not have it heavily impacted by poor decisions of our elected officials.
And thank you
Yes,
for,
Pat.
thank you for tweaking my memory
I guess I
here.
did, didn't I?
Yeah,
Go
you
ahead.
did. Yeah, you've done a good job on me today. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter at all. Choose your candidate, Democrat, Republican, Independent. It is that number that gets those candidates down here. They don't look at, oh, let's see, they carry Democrat and I'm a Republican, I'm not going to go down there, or I'm a Republican and they voted Democrat, I'm not going. They're going to come to where they can get the most impact for that dollar that they had to raise. And so if we've got 9,500 registered voters and we voted 85% in an election, they're going to come talk to us. It doesn't matter who you vote for.
Absolutely. And I would encourage anyone, if they have not talked to candidates before and wonder how to do so, you first start by saying hello, shaking their hand, and saying, I have some questions when you have an opportune time, and they're going to love it because they get to give you their business card or their campaign material with their contact information on it. And then you can invite them to a coffee, and then you don't have to be the only one going, what should I ask them? Have 6 or 8 people in the house, and then you can start asking them questions, and then you can find out, Is he going to get my vote, or do I need to talk to someone else? And this is how you become an informed voter and decide who you're going to work for or go out and vote for. But that vote is very, very important.
Thank you very much. And then the last one, if I could get you to read the last bullet point, you can change slides.
Encourage voting in all primaries leading to the election. You bet. Anything else on voting?
Nope.
Okay. Redistricting. A 3-person subcommittee has begun gathering information, and not a lot is known right now. We're working off some of the data from 10 years ago when the census is done, and a lot of that is very interesting. Some of it's confusing. However, I do have a 2013 redistricted map laid out on my kitchen table, and so it's almost the size of this table, otherwise I would have brought it. But very interesting. The data should have started coming in about now. We have been told that it's not going to be expected until about September or October. So COVID has really had a lot of pushback on some things. The Redistricting Committee for the county is all 10 county commissioners: Susan Harrison, Mike Campbell, Rick Janukula, and Buddy Bradshaw. And of course, Mayor Bradshaw is shown as a non-voting member. So these will be the people who will decide on the county level how they would like to see it, our county sectioned out, redistricted. Redistricting in the state of Tennessee is decided by the state legislature. Not all states are that way, but Tennessee, it is decided. And here again is where our outreach and our networking has been effective, and I hope that if the need is there, that it continues to be effective, because we have done outreach with almost every elected official that affects our community at all. So if need be, we will make sure that we keep up with that for the redistricting effort. So, any questions on that? Okay.
So-
Yes.
They expect the redistricting to be done in time for the primaries in May? You don't know?
Well, it's supposed to be, but
Highly unlikely.
considering we're not even getting information until October, that's a really short time frame. So
Probably going to happen right at the last minute.
it probably, and then it's going to be sent to the legislature to give it a omni-domini and so on, and who knows what time of night that happens. So it'll be interesting to watch happen, but you may be absolutely right, Bruce, it's going to be a tight call, so. Outreach and building relationships. A subcommittee, again, has been met to meet with other developments similar to the village. Rarity Bay, Wind River, Tennessee National, Fairfield, Glade, so that we can understand what we have in common, what we don't, whether or not we have issues that we can move together with in approaching our legislators on things that need to be accomplished. And so that's working out fairly well. That's just getting off the ground. Our continued presence at school board meetings, county commission, TRDA, Committee 100. Again, all of these are items of discussion in our meetings, the information that's brought back, strategies and so forth in keeping the village interests at heart. I can't overestimate Committee 100 has been bountiful as far as information and networking contacts. And committee visits with elected local officials. The one local official that immediately comes to mind, Congressman Fleshman has not yet visited with us, and we will be contacting him to have him visit with the committee and see what we can keep in mind for Kahidi. Any questions? Okay. Property reassessment, the big wonder. For the past 4 years, we've been under reassessment process. And Mike Campbell, the property assessor, has visited with our committee a few times. Notices of reassessment of the value of your property will be mailed out about April, May, so residents should be aware that they're going to be getting this in the mail. There is an appeals process for the property owners that are not sure whether it's accurate, or they're incensed or disappointed. They can, there's an appeals process to go through. It is a very timely process in that you must apply for an appeal by a certain date. The property's assessor's website is comprehensive, and we will be putting that information out through the telegram so that people can access the information they need to understand what's happening with their assessment. And he begged me to please reconfirm that he reassesses your property. He does not raise your taxes. The county commissioners raise your taxes. Monroe County was reassessed in 2019 for the first time in 30 years. I found that amazing when I researched that. So I'm sure some of those people had an appeals process going. The next assessment for Kahidi will happen in 2023. So, and then we get to elections, the fun part. As you can see, why would someone not vote when all of these positions have an impact on our life? So every one of these positions, at least one person is running. Sometimes they're unopposed. Sometimes they'll have opposition. And this is just for Loudoun. And we will be doing interviews with all of the candidates for these positions. Probably we will not get the governor, but we've had almost everyone on that list in at one time or another, and so as candidates, we'll have them in again. So, any questions? That's for Loudoun. The next page is Monroe.
I assume that districts number 1 and 7 are they,
The commissioner districts?
yes, they affect the village,
Yes.
but I thought we had 3.
There's 2 in District 1.
2 in District 1. You have David Mears and Kelly Brewster in District 1.
2
Yes.
commissioners,
And 1 in District 7. That's correct.
3, so we have 3 commissioners up there.
Yes, technically, that's correct. So your Monroe elections, that's who is standing for election and affecting life in Kahidi. And so, interesting enough, I did not realize, because I'm more familiar with Loudoun, we don't have constables, but they have constables in Monroe. Carla, can you tell me about your constables?
You can't put me on the spot like that. I can't tell you about our constables. That is something with which I'm not familiar. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So what does a constable do?
They usually serve warrants and stuff like that.
You've got somebody in the back that
Ed has a,
Basically, the constables in Monroe County serve warrants.
Serve warrants.
That's, yeah, so that's pretty much their full-time duty in Monroe County. Okay.
Thanks, Ed.
so that's why you don't know Carla. Well, thankfully, I haven't had a warrant. However, I don't think I realized they were elected, so
maybe
this
we can
has
erase
been an excellent education. Oh, no, thank you.
So you're clear. 2 other things I'd like to bring attention to. One thing I didn't bring up today because we're working on it and revising numbers again. We are still continuing with compiling volunteer hours in both sections of the village, but we've begun to get a lot of data from Kahidi. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Tom McChrystal and Ed, for their participation, and any information that can be brought forward is very helpful. So we'll have, next time we present to you, we'll have different numbers on the number of volunteers and the impact on the 2 different communities.
I have a question with that too.
Sure.
And you just had a write-up in the Telegram regarding that, right? Mm-hmm. And it mentioned you were had been researching large groups.
Right,
And the article, as I recall, says if you're a small group.
exactly.
Okay.
We have a
How-
lot, I'm sorry,
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, please.
Well, we have a lot of individuals on their own who do something.
Yeah, that's what I was
And they're not
asking.
turning that in.
That's what I was
And
asking.
that
So there are a
matters.
lot of people here that volunteer to be music teachers and/or individual instructors or helpers or big brothers, big sisters,
Yeah.
whatever. They should contact us.
Exactly, and
Okay.
just fill us in, because those hours are value-driven and are part of the contributory effort towards the effect of the
Right.
the village.
Right. Thank you.
Definitely, sure. The other information I'd like to present, yes,
One
well,
other
you're not
thing.
done, okay.
I'm sorry, but I recall when I was your liaison, there was a number. Now, this was, 6 months ago or so. What was the volunteer hours that Tellico Village residents are producing? And I know you won't get the exact.
Hours, I can't recall, it was in the 100,000s of hours, but it was over $3 million.
And converted to dollars
Yes.
based on the audited whatever allowance that people give to
Right.
average volunteer hours, it was over $3 million.
$3 million in 1 year, yes. The value of a contribution hour is $23 and I think 46 cents.
Yeah. Yeah, and thanks to all those volunteers in Tellico Village.
Exactly, exactly. The other thing I'd like to announce and mention, and this goes back to our outreach and meeting, excuse me, meeting with other elected officials and working together when necessary. We had asked to lend our support in the need for a traffic light at 321 in City Park Drive. And that was kind of stymied because of funding and so forth. And I can let you know that that traffic light will be coming. Congressman Burchett has been working with Mayor Aiken, and the traffic light is coming. So, really glad to hear that. Any other questions? Is there anything our committee needs to know and work on for you?
Will that light be timed just like the rest of them in 321?
In other words, it'll be really bad.
I'll find out for you, Bruce.
Well, you know, they were supposed to time all the lights through Lenore City as part of that big project. I haven't noticed it. I don't know about you.
I'll find out for you if I can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
You bet.
Come on down.
So, Clayton is back to give us a recommendation regarding air handling and air purification.
Okay, Friday I give Shannon a 3-page PowerPoint for you all. I'm sure she passed it on to you. First of all, I'd like to say this was prepared by Tim with Interstate Mechanicals. If you look through it, there's a lot of grammatical errors in there, and I did not prepare that. This is what he sent us. If you flip through some of these.
I just throw them right under the bus.
If you
Why
look
not?
through
He's
these,
got the microphone.
these came straight from the emails that he had sent us. I know you all had asked in the last board meeting for us to supply some information that these UV lighting did kill COVID, and we have not received that information. We have asked. This is what we received. You all have asked me for a recommendation. I think at this point, we need to slow down. We need to wait. We need to look, try to find some supporting documentation to this before we proceed to any of our other buildings.
Okay. And when do you expect that you'll be able to make that recommendation one way or the other?
I think shortly, Tim from Interstate Mechanical says that there is some tests being run. So I think by the next board meeting, I can make a recommendation, sir.
Okay, so you'll come back on April 21st and give us the data that we need to potentially make a decision.
That's the plan,
And
hopefully.
I need to remind you that you also have another deliverable for April 21st, which
Yes,
is a
sir.
recommendation about the wave attenuators.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm never letting you off the hook, you know that.
I know that.
Got a question over here.
Yes.
And again, this is to the people out there watching or will watch this on YouTube. We got a very good report last month on this UV system, and the question was asked, and because it showed the huge amount of contaminants it was removing from the air at the wellness center. And to the point of it was removing cleaning particles at a huge degree, showing that we were cleaning up. The question was asked, did the UV light kill the bacteria as they were saying it would? And we could not get that answer. And this is the answer, which you still haven't gotten the answer.
Right.
Because what we were researching was, should we put one of these in every one of our facilities? Spend that money. And what we're saying today is, this man or this company or woman or whoever it is needs to give us the answer before we can make that decision. And I'm not addressing you, I'm addressing the audience. That's what we're asking to do. So here he said, what a report shows is that 99.9% kill rate in 2 seconds, 86% kill rate in half second, 58% in quarter second, but he doesn't show us what they're killing. He's just making a statement. And what we're looking for is the data. And again, we know hospitals are using it. We know doctors' offices are using it. But just out of faith from a salesperson or a company who wants to install that, we weren't willing to vote to put it in every facility here without seeing the backup data. And that's all we're asking
Well, and
Clayton
in
to do.
fact, you know, part of your analysis should include, are there other systems that work just as well and don't cost as much?
We are looking at that, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
I knew you were.
That's all I had, thank you.
So Clayton,
Steve's got a,
Steve, I'm sorry, I didn't see you up there.
Yeah, since we have Clayton there, Clayton, is there any spalling going on with our HA5 in some locations?
Yes, there is. I have a planned meeting with Holbrook, the people that installed that product. Have a meeting with them scheduled for Thursday of next week about what we're going to do, what they're going to do to fix this problem.
So for the benefit of the audience, would you explain what spalling is?
Well, we have a lot of delamination. It's turning loose. It's not sticking to the street. It's flaking up. We have a lot of areas that it has already polished off. So I have a lot of concerns. I have documented it in the warranty paperwork. It says we have to give them written concern with the areas that, and I followed that warranty process and have that meeting scheduled. You know, right now, we're waiting to see what they're gonna do before we proceed with HA5.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
so now that you have concerns, have you?
Anything else for Clayton?
Clayton,
Yeah,
Steve?
yeah, so since you have these concerns, have you told the supplier to pull your advertisement for them, for the HA5? Or are they continually using that in their marketing program?
They are not using anything that I have done.
Okay, so that video you took for this, for the supplier has been pulled,
Yes, it should have never been put up.
okay?
How widespread is this issue?
We have that problem from 19 and 20. You know, from some of the product that was done in 19 that they were going to fix in 21. But I have explained to them that every problem that there was from 19, it and 20 has to be corrected before we will ever talk to them about doing any more work in Tellico Village.
Clayton,
So it would probably be, if I had to give you a percentage of area of what they've done, we're probably talking 40%, which is a big area.
Is there anything in the contract which would then cause them to have to come back and redo it?
Yes, we have it in our warranty paperwork that ties them back to coming back and have to fix it.
Okay.
And I have emails also for the work that was done in 19. They was gonna fix it in 20, but they wanted to wait till 21 to where they thought they could do a better job. I have an email from them saying they will take care of that problem. So I've
Clayton.
made sure we've documented everything.
Clayton, they have a history of repairing these, right?
Yes.
It's not as if they're some of the other workers that we have that won't, and we take them to court. These guys to date have made their, and honored their warranty, correct?
Yes, well, let me correct that.
Okay.
Okay? The other, companies that was applying this product.
Whitaker?
has- Yes, Whitaker and Jarrett.
Right?
This is for another discussion. I think this HA5 product is, I think, you know, pavement preservation is a topic that we are heavily looking into. And y'all will be hearing a whole lot more about it soon.
We're constantly looking at other, because we've had products before HA5 that we have problems with, correct?
Absolutely. I have been, in the last couple of weeks, I've been in Nashville, Goodlettsville, Hendersonville. I've been all over, you know, those areas looking at other products that are on the market. Those products are always evolving. There's always something better out there. And I think we've got to do our due diligence to get the best product out there for our streets.
Anything else for Clayton?
Thank you, Clayton.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Clayton.
One more thing. Carla asked me if I didn't care. She said she's had a lot of people asking about the boat launch in Kahiti. and where we was at on that. And we have done all the paperwork, we've done all the surveying, all that has been turned into TVA, and we're waiting on a reply from them. Thank you all.
That brings us to Kevin Ellsworth to update us on the finances.
Well, you're not Kevin Ellsworth.
Well,
Have on the same color.
I was gonna say they coordinate.
Uniform of the day.
Must be a Friday finance or a Wednesday finance color?
It's St. Patrick's Day.
I didn't know.
well, actually, I tell you, St. Patrick's Day green is more like that green.
Well, that's true.
Kelly green.
It's okay.
My
But
eyes
it's
are green.
close, right? Remember when you were a kid, you got pants.
Good afternoon, Board. First, I want to thank the executive team, Winston, Mitzi, and Kevin, for giving me the opportunity to fill this position and contribute to this community. Before we get started, I have a little funny story. My daughter is a freshman at Ohio State University. And we FaceTimed over the weekend, and I thought I'd practice my presentation in front of her and get her feedback. And after I finished, I said, "How did I do?" She said, "Mom, you need a different haircut." Style over numbers, I tell you. Anyway, this is day 28 for me, and we're ready to roll. Going over key non-financial indicators, I'll reference the year-to-date numbers. Assessed lots, 6,456, that's 176 over prior year and 62 over budget. POA lots sold, 58, that's 36 over prior year and 46 over budget. Suspended accounts, 163, that's 8 over prior year and 9 over budget. Collectible suspended accounts, 33. Total paying lots, 6,325, that's 169 over prior year and 54 over budget. Head count, 108, that's 11 over prior year and 4 under budget. We're searching for 1 full-time recreation employee and 3 full-time Kahiti general maintenance.
I have a
Property
question. Sorry, I just have a quick question on your suspended accounts.
Uh-huh.
So are we seeing that that is people that had been paying that have just stopped paying?
Stopped paying in the last 3 months.
Yeah, okay.
Under Public Works, property transfers, 190, 84 over prior year, 124 over budget. New home permits, 50, that's 22 over prior year, 31 over budget. Miscellaneous permits, 44, that's 5 over prior year and 26 under budget. Tank installations, 35, that's 7 over prior year, 16 over budget. And then you have the water gallons, cost of sales and revenue, and sewer in gallons, cost of sale and revenue. Under golf, we have daily prepaid rounds, 2,363, that's 250 over prior year and 19 under budget. Annual rounds, 4,304, that's 1,972 over prior year and 3,066 over budget. Guest rounds, 548, that's 57 over prior year and 209 over budget. We're fully leased for docks and fully leased for RVs. And recreation membership, individual memberships, 507, that's trailing 121 behind prior year, however, 202 over current budget.
I have a question, and I'm going back to the golf total, year-to-dates. So we're 3,200 over budget. did we blow the forecast, or we got just that many new people playing golf? I mean, that's a huge miss.
It's not a huge miss. We budgeted based off of the prior 5 years preceding 2020, because 2020 was perceived as an anomaly with the pandemic uptick. So we took the 5 years prior to 2020 and took actually the high water mark of 2019 as our primary indicator. So we budgeted aggressively compared to what we've done historically, but not compared to 2020.
So what you're saying, Chris, is that you're not quite ready to say that 2020 is the new normal.
I'm sure it will not be, but post-pandemic, that's the big unknown is how we're going to predict what that's going to look like. So I'm sure we're going to have, continue a little bit of the momentum, but I can't imagine we'll continue to have 2020 type activity, but, maybe we will.
It just seems to me that, we didn't probably budget as well as we should have. We were way too conservative.
Well, I think what it shows is that we're in the 15th month of 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't dispute that, but, yeah.
Correct. It was the most aggressive budget we've ever put together for golf in rounds. So, again, we worked off the data we had and put together a most responsible budget we could.
Yeah, and I mean, if I remember correctly from last year too, I think the other thing that, that there was conversation of the fact that once everybody gets their vaccine and everything opens up, we could have a vastly different second half of the year when it comes to golf. So that's why you needed to be a little bit more conservative, probably.
No question. And if you remember, we were going through this process in August, September. So we had no idea when things were going to start to shift and change. And, now we're predicting that's going to be more, third quarter. And we'll start to see what, maybe the new normal will look like.
As you recall, when we went into this epidemic, we purposefully were lowballing a lot of our estimates, and because we didn't know. And I think if you look at the reports that we get from marketing all the way through here, we're off, I should say, because we were so very conservative.
Well, let's take a little bit of exception with that. Yes, we were off, and recreation really hit. But my understanding was we had an awful lot of clubs, golf courses, public and private, giving us phone calls, giving your staff phone calls about what are you guys doing? Because you guys started doing some things way outside of normal to get people acclimated to this outdoor sport. And it's, thank heavens the rules changed, but you could putt to a flag before this happened, but you guys turned the cups upside down so you wouldn't have to reach down in and touch. And all of the things you did, controlling flows at clubhouses and single-use carts and renting pull carts and all of the stuff that you did kept this going so that we as residents could get out and do something, and that really threw a curve into your numbers. Well, that's sad, isn't it? Thank you, Chris, for what you guys did last year that's still reaping the reward this year.
Steve?
Charlotte, on the leased docks, I think last month it was said that not everyone had paid their annual lease. What's the status now? All the docks have made their payments for their annual lease?
No, there's one outstanding. There's one outstanding, and the Marine Advisory Committee had gotten with Holly, and my understanding is that this one on FDOC is being turned over to a collection agency.
So have we moved the boat out and made space for one that's gonna pay?
Just pull the plug on it.
No, we're following, Steve, we're following the contractual agreements, and I don't know what the date period is, but there's a certain number of dates from the time we give them the notification that they haven't paid to the time we pull their boat out. And I don't know what that number is, but if you're not paid on FDOC, I would suggest call Holly Hooper pretty quick.
Okay. Now, as an example for my fellow board members, not calling you out, Pat, but this is an operational item that should be answered by Winston and his staff versus a board member.
Okay, I'm all beat about the Head and Shoulders. Thank you, Steve.
He's a weed killer.
Yeah.
I have a question on the RV storage lot.
Don't
because-
ask it. Steve's gonna get you.
But it was just a few weeks ago that we were notified that we've identified 30-plus spots that are now available for rent, but we're showing 100%. Are we, maybe that should be an and we're showing 100%. So that's kind of the question. Are those all
I think what they're
leased
saying
out?
is they've rented 100% of the rentable ones at the moment, at that moment.
These were
because-
rentable, these were rentable, they just were not ready.
Ready. Well, they're not rentable if they're not ready.
No, that's not true, Bruce.
Well, that's what she reported last time. She reported last time that they were pulled out because they weren't ready.
I think Clayton and Mitzi know what I'm asking. Not to be short with you, Bruce, but I think they know, because
Okay,
they're.
well, I don't, so you
Yeah, I
want
was
to
gonna
elucidate
say,
me?
you wanna enlighten the rest of
Yeah.
us, or?
I think I can.
Clayton.
I think I can answer that question, Marty. When we set the original budget, if you remember, all of during 2020, we had an issue with the percentage of leased on the secured and unsecured lot. And frankly, there was discussion and confusion around how many spaces we have in each of those two lots. So during the budget, I took that number down to realistically what were we leasing, which is why that, because I was getting from FAC and everyone else, well, we know there's a waiting list on those lots, that there's no room available in those lots. So with the recent activity that you, me, Mitzi, and Clayton have been doing in those lots, at that incremental work that, say, Clayton can get 38 more spots by grading that hill that no one wanted to rent, that'll be upside to the budget because the denominator was lowered during the original budget. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I'm not talking about the ones on the hill.
Sure. So, Marty, when you and I think Kevin and Mitzi were with us, when we went out, I told you that we had created, I think it was 30 more spots. So 30 more spots we came up with that was not leased out. Over the last 3 weeks, we had 125 people on our waiting list. We've notified about 60 people, and we've had a lot of people drop off of that list. We're down to about 9 of those spots, so we're notifying people, trying to get them to come in. What we're doing is we're going over to Public Works on Fridays, have someone over there half a day to lease those spot outs where people can look at them. We'll have someone take them around. So we are down to about 9. And my goal for the other part is mid-April, have it ready to start leasing.
Okay, so that's kind of where my question was going, but that's not 100%, right? And it says 100% here.
I think we ought to just rake her over the coals then. No, I'm only kidding.
Okay,
No,
let's
I'm not blaming accounting, I'm just saying that we don't have them all rented out, that's all.
Let's move on.
Okay. Revenue, actual, 3,470,000, 200,000 over budget. Expenses, 3,157,000, 973,000 favorable to budget. Net income, 313,000, 1,172,000 favorable to budget. We'll talk a little bit about why the budget's favorable. Let's go over the categories. There's a column for actual. The second column to the right is VPY, that's versus prior year. Budget, dollars and variance against budget, and then percentage variance. Assessments are slightly over budget by 22,000. Late fees, there's a shortfall, but that is partially offset by bad debt expense. Golf, 174,000, 43,000 over prior year, and 41,000 favorable to budget. Golf revenue is over budget due to total annual member rounds and after 2 p.m. rounds, up 3,000 over budget. Guest rounds are up 209 rounds over budget. Total played year-to-date, 3,256 over budget, and total cart rounds are above budget by 2,306. Golf merchandise is favorable at 24,000, 9,000 over budget. Recreation, year-to-date, is over budget by 33,000. That, again, household memberships are over budget by 276, and individual memberships are 404 over budget. There is a positive trend in membership. Going to installed tank revenue is favorable. There's 14 tank jobs started and the same number closed, and that's partially offset by the 2020 rate. Dock revenue is unfavorable by 13,000 to budget. There was no dock gas revenue for February due to the system being down. ACC permits, 40,000 over budget. That relates to new home permits exceeding budget. There were 50 versus 19 in the budget, offset by miscellaneous permits, which fell below budget by 26. Going down to other income, that is primarily due to administrative service fees related to property transfer fees. They exceeded budget. All right. Here's the trend for revenue and expenses. And then expenses, once again, you've got the category with the actual versus prior year budget, budget dollar variance, and percent variance. Maintenance, 250, that's unfavorable against prior year by 170. The budget was 768. It's favorable by 518,000. There's a lot of projects that have not gotten underway. Some of those I'll talk about. Public Works, there's 83,000 of signage and post replacement, 71,000 wet well coating and equipment maintenance, 33,000 street maintenance, 11,500 for concrete pad and walls, 15,000 road salt contingency that was not used for the winter months, 30,000 energy projects, 42,000 chemical building, flooring, painting, HVAC repairs. There's 80,000 in dock, 16,000 relates to maintenance, 55,000 relates to anchor replacement, and 9,000 security upgrades. There's also general ops, recreation, and food service, which is 30 to 35,000 each, favorable to budget.
Steve has a question.
Steve?
So Charlotte, you can't answer this, Clayton, so why have we not spent the 500,000, and when do you plan to spend it? Because this seems to be a pattern I've seen the last 3-4 years being on the board. You put a budget together, we go through January, February, and you underspend the maintenance budget by 2, 3, 4, 500,000. So why have we, how come we didn't complete those jobs, and when will you get those jobs complete?
Stand by.
Steve, this is Kevin Ellsworth answering your question, and Clayton chime in. Like some of the projects that were budgeted for January and February needed to wait. I'll give you an example. The wet well coating. Chad is in the process of, you'll see a capital request for putting in a bypass pit at the one lift station. So they need to put that in so they can divert the flow out of the bypass pit to the bypass pit so they could do the recoding. So some of that is just, once these capital requests start flowing, all of these will get right back on schedule. Clayton and I and Winston have talked about how to kind of get these things moving in a faster time frame.
Okay. Yeah, I know he is.
Okay. Salaries, favorable at 1,170,000, favorable to budget by 121. As I mentioned previously, we're searching for 1 full-time recreation and 3 full-time Kahiti general maintenance. Operating supplies, 324,000, that's favorable to budget by 132,000. That is, the majority of savings there is in the maintenance department. Water and sewer revenue was slightly favorable against budget, and other of 20,000, that was offset by, there's many expenses, and Steve, I know you had asked a question regarding the detail. There's over 20 accounts, small items, and those expenses are offset by gain loss on sale of land of 125,000. Here's the trend for net income. Then golf rounds by course. For Tokwa, 2,595 year-to-date. That's favorable against budget by 1,000. Tenacity, 2,258, favorable by 835 to budget. Kahiti, 1,815, favorable to budget by 1,211. Total rounds, 6,667, 3,000 favorable.
Can I ask Chris Sykes a question about that?
Sure.
Chris, those annual, are those actual rounds, or is that annual membership sold? How is that differentiated?
It's rounds.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
so those 3,000 rounds don't necessarily, that, we're not talking about revenue, we're just talking about rounds,
Correct.
and that number, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Guest rounds, favorable, actual total guest rounds, 548, favorable to budget by 209. Oops, where'd we go? And recreation memberships, as mentioned, there's a positive trend. 723 for January on household, 741 for February. Individual memberships, 505 January, 509, slightly higher for February. Simon's doing a good job with memberships. Yes, Steve?
Since AWE invoked their force majeure for the yacht club subsidy, have you guys taken a look at forecasting what you expect that to be by year end?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
What he said is that the force majeure in the contract for the yacht club food service has been invoked. And basically that says that he isn't going to make the subsidy number. And I think Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, is asking if you've made a projection as to what that subsidy might be through the end of the year.
Steve?
That is correct, Rick. How big's that number gonna be?
Steve, we have not done that detailed analysis yet. I'll work with both Charlotte and Mitzi and Andy to project that out and present that to you all at the next board meeting.
Yeah, I think we need to take a look at it, because depending on how big it is, we just don't want to sit back and just accept what flows in through that account because of lack of participation at the yacht club.
So I have a question.
Yes?
If you look at household memberships on recreation here, we're at 741, and that compares to about July, August last year. Going back to last year, we're at 1072, 74 we went up to, and then COVID hit. We started getting the effect in March, and it was a downward trend the entire year until we started getting some of the restrictions lifted. And again, all recreations took a hit because of the proximity of being indoors. Understand that. Question to Mitzi, to Simon, to Winston, its staff, is that now that it's going back up, is it, well, I'm not gonna ask that. I was gonna ask, is it acceptable to have a gradual increase, or what are you going to develop a plan to turbocharge that increase by marketing, selling, showing, demonstrating to get that up the same rate it fell off last year? You can sit back and let it happen, or you can get on the stick and make it happen, because the residents want to be safe, they want to participate, they want to get back into these activities with meeting rooms and exercises and swimming, but if you just let it happen, it's going to slowly go up. But if you take all of your marketing skills and make it happen, you will be back up to 1,000, I predict, by 1,200 by June. Write that down. Or you're going to be at 847 by June.
You really need to concentrate on your marketing as everybody gets past that 2 weeks on their second vaccination.
And you can wait till everybody gets to the 2 weeks, or you can start marketing right now.
Market now, but you're not going to get them. You've got to understand how the people in this village think.
I understand. And I'm one of the last ones that are going to participate, but I'm chomping at the bits to participate. And there's somebody right before me and somebody right before them, and if we wait, you're just going to go up the same rate we fell. And there is a way, there is a strategy to get this done, and I'd like to see what we're going to do, because we can get this back up rather than go, oh, woe is us, we're doing really good.
I guess I want to get back to golf a little bit. I'm kind of piggybacking on Carla's question. Chris, I don't know if this is you, it might be accounting, but, you know, we're reporting on rounds played, which is great. I mean, we see rounds, but it seems like some type of a better measurement would be revenue generating rounds, or, you know, if we've got all these round increases on annual membership, that probably corresponds to more annual memberships too. How can we see that a little bit easier when we look at these reports, saying, okay, yeah, our rounds are way up on annual, but so are our annual memberships. So we get some type of correlation there. We can make that assumption, or if we could see something, I think it'd be a little more beneficial. See what I'm asking?
But wouldn't that just be a best guess number? Because technically, if you're going to report it correctly, you're going to take all of us golfers that paid for all of that prepaid and all of that annual membership, and you're going to put it in a big pile and report to us every month how much you ate out of the pile.
Right.
Right? Instead of building up.
But maybe show us the pile compared to last year.
Well, we already know the pile in January, because people are paying and it's there and we've got it in that account. And that's the cash that finance is reporting on, because it's boats and recreation prepaid and all that. So what you're doing is you're just really eating away. Every time I play a round or anybody plays an annual round, it just subtracts out of that. So you're dwindling it down. The other ways, he's gonna have to come up with, this is what I've got in terms of money, this is the number of people I've got, this is the average that it's generating per round, and if I had 689 annual member rounds times that average, well, I'm just got an average, I don't want to know an average, you know?
And maybe I've forgotten, but I agree with Marty that it would be helpful to know, I mean, I would love to have a comparison of how many annual memberships have we sold and what is that revenue? And then we can figure out at the end of the year, you know, when we talk about revenue generating rounds, we can figure out, you know, what revenue was actually generated by the round. But I don't know if that's as relevant to us in the budgeting process as it is to know how many actual memberships were sold and what the revenue was from that. Is that what you're getting
Yeah,
at?
because I can look at the rec thing, and you can correlate that real easily, right? Because every one of those are a paying membership. But we don't quite get that same comparison in the golf.
Well, in golf, there's two things you got to take in consideration if you want to be successful. Number one is the number of annual memberships that you pay. And number two is, how are we doing on pay-as-you-go?
Yeah, if I could just make a quick comment about all that. At last month's board meeting, we did report to you all on the number of annual memberships that we sold at that point in time versus the budget. Now, that's a moving target, and I haven't had the opportunity to go back into Chelsea. And, you know, obviously Adam's been out lately, so we can certainly report, because my guess is that number's not really growing that much anymore, because people have already made that decision about whether or not annual works for them. Prepaid gets a little more difficult, because I could tell you the number of people that have prepaid accounts, but you may put $1,000 in, and Carla may put $200 in. So how that gets decremented, that's more relevant to the rounds.
Right.
But, you know, obviously the utilization of those annual memberships, you know, we could certainly add that to the metrics going forward. That's not a problem.
But the prepaids and the people that pull out their wallet, those are pay-as-you-go.
It is, and frankly, you know, the rec statistics, even though they're, you know, simple to understand, those rec memberships go by monthly, there's 6-month memberships, and there's full year memberships. So really what you need to tease out is the deferred revenue side on the balance sheet. That liability is going to fluctuate depending on, you know, time elapsing, so.
Well,
Maybe the only other thing we need to add to make me happy would be just the number of annual memberships.
Yep.
Right, and the number of after-2 memberships. That, I mean, that way you can kind of compare that then to the number of rounds played that month.
Okay.
Well, and again, what's gonna happen though, Marty, is if you just look at those annual memberships and you look at the annual after 2, then you're gonna say, this is how many we have. And they're generating a lot of revenue. The more annuals you sell, the more after 2 annuals you sell. But the prepaid accounts, the members, the people that are property owners that decided, I'm just gonna put in some money, are generating, I would guess, from the numbers I saw, more revenue than the annual. We're pretty close. You also have property owners that don't prepay. I play golf with some of them that say, I'm not gonna give Teleco Village my $1,000, I'm gonna pay for it with a credit card. So they don't prepay, so they don't get the discount. There's not a lot of those. But your money is in the 322 guest rounds that we paid. So technically, if we want to make a lot of money, you'll go outside of Teleco Village, they'll come in and pay $65 a round. So you can't forget any one of these pockets. All I'm saying is, if you look at annual, after 2 annual, and forget about prepaid, regular member, and guest rounds, then your numbers are gonna be skewed towards annual.
No, I understand that. My point is, just as you are saying, if I see the number of those other rounds, the prepaid, and the people that are paying and the guests, I get a pretty good idea of the revenue coming in from those. I don't really see that comparison with the annual memberships. That's all I'm saying.
three sessions ago, you showed us the budgeted annual membership, budgeted annual twilight that was built into the budget, and you showed us actual annual memberships you showed.
Yes.
That's part A of this equation.
Yeah.
I don't see that data published today, so that needs to be added to your NFI chart, in my opinion.
Yep.
The second piece is these revenue generating rounds. Marty's absolutely right. I keep talking about them. You need to show how many budgeted paying rounds other than the annuals you got in the budget and how many you got on the actual side, because right now the data is combined. You can't make heads or tails because you're mixing annual membership rounds with daily paid rounds.
Apples and oranges.
Yep.
So Chris, we do like our numbers, don't we?
Adam, get well, bud.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, just to give you a report on current activities, Winston talked earlier and updated the board on the Public Works Administrative Building claim. That's been completed, everything's filed. We're working through a course of action on the funds that we did receive. The annual insurance rebid process, which goes into effect April 1st and is an annual process, working with 3 brokers, TIS Insurance, Scott, and Athens. We will update the board on options for their decision sometime next week as pricing continues to change and come in. So before the April 1st renewal, the board will be able to make a decision on our insurance renewals. And then the field work for our annual audit begins with Coulter and Justice starting April 8th and will run through April 23rd. And next Monday, and I'll make sure that all the audit committee gets a reminder, but on March 22nd, we have an audit committee meeting with Coulter and Justice to talk about any areas of concern or area of focus that the audit committee would like to have in the annual audit.
Kevin?
Yes, sir.
I might not have caught it this morning, but we're not doing an all-for-one type thing with those 3. We can split it across the 3? Or do you know yet?
No, we could definitely split it. It's more of almost an a la carte
Right.
type. So when I submitted paperwork to all 3 brokers, they go out to various carriers and kind of canvas, our bid out to them. So.
Yeah. I remember Parker got a better bargain by separating it.
Absolutely.
Right.
So like even though, like our incumbent in workers' comp insurance,
Right.
all 3 are proposing, pricing for workers' comp.
Microphone, turn it on. There you go.
Mark says, this is the 10th year with this auditor. Is there any intention to switch to another auditor as is common practice with public companies? And he means for next year.
We've changed partners twice.
Steve?
Yeah, I don't know where that comes from. You don't change auditing firms, you change partners. They gotta rotate out for the rules of used to be the AICPA or whatever, but you don't change auditing firms unless you think you're getting overbilled or you don't think they have the qualifications to perform the audit. What do you think, Kevin?
You are exactly correct, and Winston Blazer said the same thing. So they do audit, rotate out. They go through a peer review with an independent third-party accounting firm to make sure that Coulter and Justice is maintaining the proper professional standards that's required of a CPA. Okay, moving on to capital requests. It was noted earlier that there has been a delay in some of our capital requests. Part of that is due to, obviously the change in scheduling on board meeting times. We're working through adjusting to that. We also brought on Brian Phillips, who is a purchasing manager Brian is here with us today. I wanted to formally introduce him to the board at the next meeting, at the April 21st meeting, go through Brian's background, go through some key initiatives that he and I have for our purchasing. But part of that, bringing him on board and getting him up to speed quickly, he's been a big help to Public Works. He's working with golf, and Simon is well on rec, so even Andy, so we can make AWE better, which we will benefit from. So we're trying to all work together to tighten up our financial controls. I think I laid out for you all when I took this position from Parker that financial controls has been a big focus of mine this coming year. And as part of that, Brian developed a purchasing checklist that we all follow to ensure that we're documenting all of the adherence to the purchasing policy. So if you all would like to see it, I'm not including them in the board. I think it's in your board material, not on the screen, but I think it's a nice way to kind of make sure that we've got things covered. So with that, the first request is for a replacement cooler at the Tenacity Bar and Grill. If you remember, last year we replaced the one at one of the other facilities. I think it was Tokwa, Mitzi. This one is also aged out. We had $20,000 in our capital budget for this. The requested amount is for $19,952. And although I'd like to say, gee, we're pretty accurate in our budgeting, these units are all custom built. So it's very difficult to try to get an apples to apples on these units.
You should take the win when you can get it.
All right. Dang, I'm good. The source of funds would be from operating cash. This slide was not updated. The Financial Advisory Committee, I'll change that from approval to recommendation. On Friday, the FAC did recommend that we proceed with that. The budgeted project obviously would replace a unit that is at its end of life with no trade-in value. We did get 2 bids. Trimark is the company that lately we've been working with quite a bit on a lot of our kitchen upgrades and supplies. Colpack was the competitor, and the difference in those prices comes down to some shelving that was not included in the Colpack bid. There's no required request from the Board of Directors, as this is within budget and within the CEO approval authority. Yes, Steve?
All right, I've raised this issue with Mitzi, but so the other board members understand. We have a contract with AWE. Go to section 3.7. Let's talk about maintenance of premises and equipment, and part of that language states that AWE, the contractor, must repair or replace the equipment, which is in Exhibit B, which this cooler is listed. So the question I've got is, why are we giving away property owner rights to have AWA pay for this and have us pay for it out of pocket when the contract is very clear? They are liable for paying this $20,000.
You want to address that?
Yes. Steve, as I had mentioned earlier previously, and I've spoken with Rick about this, what you had actually received was a copy of the agreement in its editing form that began after our budget approval last November, when Andy and I had sat down to go over, adding the revenue received at Tokwa. Now, this is just the clubhouse agreement that I'm referencing right now. And I do take full responsibility for that. I've given Rick, the actual agreements that we have in place with Andy, and section 3.7 is not worded as such. We have never, required Andy to buy any capital that is ours, that is our POA equipment. Basically what the paragraph should say is if we are AWE is negligent in taking care of that equipment, then at that point he would be responsible for replacing and repairing any of that kitchen equipment.
Okay, well, I'm just referencing the contracts that you sent to us, which are signed. I'm looking for them on my computer, and it says, in September 24th is when you sent these agreements out to the board members. And this agreement has that section 3.7, which says he's responsible, and it is an agreement that was signed and executed by Winston and Andy on March 7th, 2016. So unless you have another signed contract, this is the only thing that I've got as a board member that says we have a signed agreement. So is there another signed contract that says he doesn't owe it?
I think the one that you have there is actually the one that is the typo. It should say, during the term of this agreement, contractor agrees that all costs to repair or replace existing equipment shall be paid by client. And yours says contractor. That's what I'm saying. That was my mistake. That is an error. That's a typo.
Okay, but so what you're saying is you have a signed contract with the proper language and you sent the board members the wrong contract last September?
Yes, that's correct. And I have actually given Rick the, originals. What I did is go to the fireproof safe and just pull the signed contracts that had not been edited through a PDF or a Word version. And so he has those, and I'll be glad to send those back out. But section 3.
I would suggest you send us a copy of the contract that's been signed and executed that's in effect. So I'm dealing with what we've agreed to and not to, because like I said, what you sent says he owes it, not us.
I think you're in agreement. She says she's gonna send them to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And the difference is in the two contracts, we have the yacht club agreement, and then we have the TOPA and the Tenacity agreement. The different sections would be the amount that Andy pays in the utilities, the difference in the financial piece, such as there is no subsidy at TOPA and Tenacity, and there is subsidy at the yacht club. And then the only other difference would be our hours of operation, in which that's kind of what originated behind doing the amendments on the TOPA and the Tenacity agreement is we were having to go back and forth in writing all the time with our director of golf on the hours of operation. So that's really the only three major pieces that there should be any change in those agreements.
Weeds. We're in the weeds.
Well, not exactly, Bruce. If we've got a contract that says we have property owner
No,
rights.
I'm not just
I
talking
think
about
you're
the
being
contract.
told that that was a typo in the contract.
Right.
It looks like a pretty good contract without a typo to me, based on.
Well,
what we
it doesn't
received.
even seem reasonable to me that you would expect a contractor to do that.
Well,
Unless you
considering
want
he pays
to
no
have
rent-
him buy it and then he takes it when you kick him out of here.
Well, considering he pays no rent, he just shows up, we provide everything, that could be one of his considerations to get the rights to have access to that property.
I don't want to continue in these tall weeds, but I would say that, I thought I heard Mitzi say, unless I misunderstood you, is that you do have a contract that says what Steve is saying it should say, but you just didn't give it to us. You gave us the wrong copy.
Correct. Well, correct. Yes.
Yeah, what happened, as I understand it, is as they were actually trying to make changes, for instance, to get the writing out of the contract and make it an agreement between the golf director and the food service director, it got translated from a PDF into a Word file and then back, and it got screwed up as a result. So it's a typo. It was certainly never the way we've operated, nor is it a reasonable expectation for us to make the contractor buy major equipment of that nature. We make the contractor buy all of the small wares.
Right.
And that's covered in the contract. This isn't smallware, this is a major asset. That's really part of our building.
What's considered smallware?
Silverware, tablecloths.
Dishes.
We just bought all
Microwave.
that for TOPA though. The POA just bought all that.
That was a huge one, I guess, replacement when the building
Yeah, if he has
got
to replace
rebuilt.
it, it's on him. So anyway,
Okay, move on, Rick.
yeah.
Oh, just bought that blooming fan down there.
These next two requests are somewhat related. I will ensure the board that in the budget, They were budgeted separately as individual projects.
That would have been my question.
Can you go back one slide, please, for just a
Yes, sir.
second? On this thing, it's great, Brian. It's just that. I
We
think
now are getting initials
Yeah,
on, yes, sir.
Exactly. If that thing popped up there, I think every board member could see that and say, good job, right? We may have other questions, but at least we know that our purchasing agent has made sure that this was done according to whole.
Yep, we've added that to our process. So back to these two related requests. This one is for $20,000. It's related to 10 replacements for the personal watercraft or jet ski lifts. The old style doesn't work well. I know it's caused damage to some of the PWCs. This is a sole source. These systems integrate within each other and interlock. I believe that creates stability when a person jumps on, off of their water ski onto the platform. The additional PWC lifts are a revenue source. Obviously, there's a waiting list for these. The requested amount is $21,896. The source of funds would be from operating cash. Last Friday, the FAC made the recommendation to move forward. And so the justification is a budgeted project to replace the old style lifts. The lifts can be removed and sold on a secondary market to help offset the cost. The vendor for all of these systems is Hydro Hoist. And there's no requested board action. None's required as it's within the CEO's authority. But I may ask for a vote for both of these together, if you don't mind, Rick.
I'm fine with that.
And I'll just ask for that to be done at the end of the second request. The next PWC lift is for 10 additional PWC lifts throughout, I think it's Tenacity and Kahiti. Again, it's sole source due to the integration. Chad is the manager. Budgeted amount is $20,000. The requested amount is $20,806. Again, from operating cash. FAC also recommended this on Friday. And the bid is Hydro Hoist as well. And the difference between the price on the two, since they're both for 10 units each, really comes down to the disposal of the old lifts.
It's removal.
Or the removal.
Right.
Yes, correct. So if I could ask for board approval. Yes, Steve?
I just lost volume from you. You may have already covered this. Why do we have two requests for the same thing instead of one?
Well, one is for replacement of old lifts, and the other one is for 10 additional lifts. And if you look at the in the doc detail of the 2021 budget, they were budgeted as separate projects. But I'm asking for board approval since it's basically an interrelated, same vendor, and it's, to me, a related request.
Thank you.
For purposes of microphone, I would highly recommend that you ask for separate approval on these.
Well, if he does that, he doesn't have to have board approval.
Right.
Right. I would highly recommend that.
And your reason would be?
I would just soon that we make sure that we are following state law.
Meaning what, Bruce?
Please don't ask me to go there.
Well, I understand I know what you're gonna worry about, but either you need a licensed contractor or you don't.
Exactly.
Oh,
I would just say that because of the Some people's mind, the gray area there is that there is some gray area. If you combine these two, then you may have put yourself in a position where we can't use hoist.
So they're not licensed.
That's correct.
I understand.
And I'll, just to chime in, I don't think this, regardless of the monetary amount, meets the standard for requiring of a licensed contractor in the state of Tennessee. If looking at the statutes, it only deals with improvements to real property, and these PWC lifts are actually personal property, which are not attached to or affixed to real property. These are simply personality that's bolted on to existing docks. So I don't think it would meet the threshold requirements, but you know, even if it did.
Yeah, why create the argument?
What's that?
Why create the argument?
Exactly.
So, do you want to rephrase what you want?
Yes, I will turn it to an advisory, and the board is aware of 2 separate individual requests that are within the CEO's authority.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. This next,
Wait a second, and I can't resist, so shut me up, but if,
Okay, shut up.
but the research and all of the background information and the installation and all of that has been approved, or recommended, or whatever the word is.
Recommended.
It has gone through the advisory committees, finance, recommended, Marine Advisory Committee, recommended, right?
correct.
Okay.
No, he wasn't saying advisory in that
Oh,
regard.
I know.
He was saying he is advising us of 2
Yeah, I know.
separate procurements.
I know.
That's correct.
I'm just making sure
he wants
that,
Right.
that the property owners aren't saying the board is doing, this is requested by the property owners through the advisory committees to us, and we've just been advised how to react to this, so here we go.
Okay. This next request is a little more straightforward. It is for the last of a 3-year initiative, I believe, to replace old street sign posts throughout the village. The budgeted amount was under maintenance for $57,000. The request is for $57,928. The source of funds would be from operating cash. Again, the Finance Advisory Committee recommended moving forward with this request. And the justification is the replacement of these older signs will bring all of the village street sign posts up to the same standard. And the final areas will be Mealacqua, Chattooga, Tenacity, Tomotley, and Coyatee. This also is sole source to be consistent with other signage in the village. And going forward, as we work through future repair and maintenance to these posts, the purchasing manager is going to be evaluating and looking into additional vendors. And as long as we're consistent with our signposts and it's acceptable from an aesthetic point of view for the village, we could certainly try to source additional folks to handle that type of work.
So the reason this is sole source is so it matches everything else we've already bought?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the vendor is Ornamental Post and Panel. And this one, I do need approval for maintenance spend for street sign posts funded from operating cash.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the expenditure of $57,928 from operating cash to complete the multi-year initiative to replace all village street sign posts with an updated version. Okay. And discussion.
This is just for acquisition of the material. We put the signs up ourselves, correct? Correct. Yes, okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
Thank you. This next request is for additional floating docks within the Tenacity Basin. The request is for the construction of a new dock. The total cost includes an electrical power pedestal and water stanchions, which were not originally included in the budget, which is why there's a variance to the budget. Again, this is sole source due to this company being the only one out of about 12 that we solicited bids. Right now, it is next to impossible to get folks to bid on this type of work. They've got more work than they know what to do with. When we originally started getting quotes and working through estimates, Jeff Gagley originally had, I want to say it was 10 to 12 weeks out. That's now about 20 weeks out. So even if the board were to approve these today, it'll end up being quite a ways out before we see them. The budgeted amount is $188,000. The requested is $214,298. If you recall, we no longer have the dock reserve, so the request would come from the amenity reserve. The Financial Advisory Committee made the recommendation on Friday to move forward. The additional dock space, obviously, you know, we talked earlier, there's more than adequate demand for docks at this time. And the vendor is Floating Docks Manufacturing, and they have done a lot of the docks within our system. So the docks would be consistent in build, and the placement of the docks is also consistent, I think, with the master plan that the TVA approved. So the request is for the approval of the Tenacity Basin floating docks capital project with funding from the amenity reserve.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the capital expenditure of $214,298 for construction of a new floating dock in the Tenacity Basin funded from the amenity reserves. Pat, second. Marty?
Steve had his hand up before you called for
Okay, I'll give it to you, Steve. You got it. Sorry, Marty.
Okay. No, I mean, I thought he had a question. I didn't.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought you meant too.
Yeah.
So, discussion?
I got a couple. Number one is that this is not weather dependent, correct? I mean, like some of the things that we're doing around the docks, we have to do it before the water comes up, or?
Correct, I mean, we're just not gonna get them in before the water comes.
But we'll, even with this delay, we'll still be able to do it this year during the summer.
He assures us.
During this boating season, I guess, right?
He assures us that we can get them in by the.
Okay, and number two, project, this is just this is a part of the project, correct? There's other things, is there other costs involved from our standpoint, or is this it? That's it? Okay, so this is like a turnkey operation. Okay, good deal.
Does that include the access path from the parking lot?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, have we, my third question is, and I think I'm asking this rhetorically, if not, I know Pat will answer it. What's the impact of parking on this? Do we know yet?
Yeah, the Marina Advisory Committee did a study last year, and I don't remember the number, but they went down during peak days. They counted the number of cars that were there and boats used, boats docked on all of those slips in through whatever that other letter is, and calculated the cars per boat, and it worked out with this 32 falls within that range. But they also sent out letters last year explaining that you have a very high probability during 3-day weekends, July the 4th, Memorial Day, whatever, to drive down there with 2 or 3 carloads in your family and not find a parking spot. So they also did a study on Poplar Springs and Clear Creek and noted that parking did increase there because what was recommended in this letter that went out was to drop off a captain and perhaps a kid at the Tenacity Basin, drive down to a public parking area, and then the boat picks up the party there. So rather than filling up the parking spot with 3 or 4 cars per family, is keep it to one or control. The idea is to keep them off of the neighborhood streets, blocking that area around the Tenacity villas and townhomes. And it seems to work last year, and these numbers fit into the same numbers they generated last year. I just don't have the number that they calculated.
Thank you. My point is that we have done our homework.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other
and-
discussion? Now, I know that there's another set of docks in this year's budget. With this kind of lead time, when, Clayton, do you think you'll be coming forward with the second set?
Whoa. No, there's not one in this year's budget. No, there's not.
Oh, that's right, never mind.
Yeah, don't go spend another
I had a senior
$200,000.
I was testing you. Boy, you got a really confused look on your face, too. Yeah, okay.
So I have a question too. Does construction of this new dock impact accessibility to people in their current docks? No. Okay.
What will they do, just float them up?
They will most likely put them together at one of the boat ramps and float them in.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Which brings up another point. Somebody's going to come up with the question, who's going to get it?
Who's gonna get
Who's
what?
going to be able to move into that dock?
Those
First,
People on the waiting list.
there's people on the waiting list first, and right now there's almost 100 on the waiting list throughout Monroe and Loudoun County. And then there's 69 people on the wait list, and wait list 69, and then there's 94 on the move list. So typically, the way the Marine Advisory Committee's done it is they go to the move list first because they're existing residents. They move people where they want to go, and then they open up. There will be 32 slips opened up in Tellico Village, Monroe, and Loudoun for those people to then select their dock.
Other discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
Thank you.
I will state that Brian gave me the assurances that they went through this up one side and down the other, correct, Brian? Okay.
It is a little more expensive than we budgeted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, this next request, I've got my backup here, Chris Sykes. I'd like him to kind of talk through the business justification for the golf cart proposal, and then Charlotte and I will kind of back him up on the financial analysis and discussion.
Thank you, Kevin. Just give a little background, so bear with me. So, we survived what was a historic golf season in 2020. And, once we had a chance to catch our breath, we obviously circled the wagon, so to speak, and started to look at our opportunities to continue to move golf forward in Tellico Village. And in the process of doing so, what had historically been an inconvenience with our golf cart fleets became very clear that we had a major issue with our golf cart fleet. So at that point in time, we started really digging deep into the discovery process, which obviously included any and all options as we work towards a solution for our golf cart fleets. So I've been working on golf carts for months, literally. I've spent time every day working on trying to put ourselves in the best position moving forward, short-term and long-term, with our golf cart fleet. So it's just going to give you a little background on where we stand, and I have it broken down into a couple larger bullet points and a lot of smaller bullet points. So just to give you an idea of our situation, so currently we historically have purchase, run for 3 years, rebattery, and run for 3 more. So, and in doing so, we've gotten the most basic golf cart we can get, and we've set ourselves up for not for success, but for failure. And we've been experiencing catastrophic failure, not at any facility, but all 3 facilities. So to give you a little example, the Kahidi fleet, which was purchased in 14, is worn out and considerable mechanical and cosmetic issues. We currently have 9 carts down at Kahidi. The Tokwa fleet, which is a lemon with bad motors, which are currently out of warranty, and those motors cost $800 a piece. And some of those motors have replaced 3 to 4 times. So that's going to continue to be the case. So we'll have 5 to 6 carts down at Tokwa at any given time. And Yamaha has continued to support them as long as we remain partners with Yamaha, but obviously that's not going to be part of a recommendation because that is not a solution. The Tenacity fleet had premature battery failure, so we barely got 2 years out of the batteries that were supposed to last for 3. So we had catastrophic failure this past fall where we were towing in 6, 8, 10 carts a day. We're not set up to do that, so obviously that led to a bad experience, disruptive, honestly embarrassing from a customer service perspective. So we're not set up to do that. To compensate, we've been renting golf carts, so we've been trying to do what we can to survive. So as we've gone deeper into this discovery process, it's becoming increasingly apparent that lead-acid battery, traditional battery-powered golf carts are not a solution for Tellico Village. They're not a viable option for Tellico Village just due to our high play volume and our improved utilization of the tee sheet. So, which is all good. We're recording historic rounds and we're busier than we've ever been, but also we've got better utilization of our tee sheet because of our programming. So the twilight programming, the success there. Just to give you an example, on a busy summer day, when tee time started at 7:30, with 60 carts per facility, we're flipping the fleet at 11:30 and then we're flipping it again at 3:30. So at a minimum, our carts have to be able to go 45 holes, if not 54 holes. So lead acid is not an option. It will not do that, and we continue to have failure as a result. So just to get a little deeper into the mechanics of this, in addition, we're not equipped to manage a failing fleet or facilitate major repairs. We don't have dedicated cart mechanics. When our golf course mechanics are having to work on golf carts, they're neglecting something else, that something's not getting done or having to work over. It's obviously very disruptive to the overall operation. With minimal outside staff, we're not equipped either to deal with retrieving failing golf carts, which again was routine on basis. So in addition, where that was happening most, in the greatest occurrence was at Tenacity, where we don't have tow bars either. So it would take 2 outside staffers, which we usually don't even have, but 2 outside staffers. So our entire outside staff would have to go retrieve a golf cart. So it'd take 2 of them, take 2 carts, give the customer that's waiting, they call the golf shop, the cart that we hope will finish the round, and navigate and push one another in and so on and so forth. So it was really a circus, so to speak. So, but going through this process, we discovered that there's an opportunity to move golf forward and address this from a short-term and long-term perspective. So if you go through the overall golf experience, this is the touch point, the missing piece of the experience. So to use Tokwa as an example, we have a new clubhouse. So you enter the new clubhouse, everything's really nice. You enter the new golf shop with, fully stocked with really nice merchandise. So you're having this great experience. You know what to expect with the reputation with our golf course and our golf course conditions. And then you go through the transaction of renting your golf cart, and we put you in a golf cart that's probably got a torn seat, that's beat up, and we're hoping and praying it's going to make it 18 holes. So ultimately, our goal was to find a solution, a dependable golf cart experience. So in the process of doing so, we'll have a better, more dependable golf cart, a better golf experience, and be able to substantiate some future increases if needed. But going through the discovery process, we've also discovered that we're in a unique position from a leverage perspective and from a used car perspective. So no different than the housing market, there is a shortage of used golf cars in the marketplace, which that's working in our favor, thankfully. When we first started down this path, we were looking at a trade value of about $250K, and now we're at $400K. So the partner we're recommending is actually $400,400 is what they're going to give us for our 3 fleets of junk carts that don't fit our business needs. So it's a seller's market, unprecedented. It's a unique point in time. We're never going to be in a stronger position to make this change. And in addition, with leveraging all 3 fleets versus 1 individual fleet, it puts us in a stronger purchasing position. So we're getting a better value, a better price, and we're able to leverage that volume and get some free utilization of other tools that we need and have budgeted. So some examples are, we have a range picker budgeted for this year. Well, they're going to throw it in for free. They're going to throw in a range picker for Tokwa and for Kahidi, and free use vehicles for our golf course superintendents, which are all budgeted items that we will not need in the future. So that's an approximate savings of about $60,000. So getting to the point, the solution, and again, as we went down this path, I've been working on it for months and months. I got deep into the discovery process and started just networking and researching the overall marketplace. So anybody and everybody I knew that was in the golf business, I reached out to them just to do a survey of sorts. Hey, who are you? What carts are you using? How long are you running them? How are you paying for them? What are some of the accessories you're getting? What are the good, bad, and ugly of purchasing golf carts? What would you do differently? What mistakes have you made? So we went through that whole process, and I surveyed, several dozen golf courses, and it became very clear, especially in our greater area, that everybody's leasing. You don't want to own these golf carts at the end of the term when they've extended their useful life, and everybody's doing so in a 4 to 5 year period, and everybody's going lithium, because lithium is the future, and it's been in the marketplace for a good number of years now, and has proven itself. So, additionally, obviously a strong financing position. Leasing affords a better, more dependable cart with more options. Leasing helps plan and avoid budget spikes. And here is the solution. Lithium is the solution. So it's a new technology. It first came into existence in 2017 with EasyGo at the beginning of 2017, and then Club Car came out with their lithium at the end of 2018, and it is a solution for Tellico Village. And part of the reason we've gone with a 60-month approach is the lithium cars are warranted, fully warranted for 5 years, so you're protected for the full term. The expectations are to get about 8 years out of these cars, but again, we're protected for 5, so that's why we're going for a 5-year term. Just to give you an example, our friends down the street at Willow Creek, who went lithium this past year, had a lightning strike and had some batteries zapped, which were covered by insurance, but in the process of navigating that claim, they found out that a new battery costs $3,300. So at the end of the warranty period, you don't want to own these because the battery is going to cost more than the car is worth. And zero maintenance, and when I mean zero maintenance, we'll never have to raise the seat again. There's no cables, there's no distilled water, none of that. There's none of those issues and things we have to manage now. There's no amp hour limitations, so it's not like you're leasing an automobile where you have mileage limitations. Something else that we've learned kind of the hard way a little bit is a lithium car can be quick charged. And what I mean by quick charged is something we have to rely on a daily basis is one of our cars will go 18 holes and we'll plug it in for 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour if we're lucky, just so it can go another 9 or 18 holes. But in the process of doing so, which was absolutely necessary for us to survive, you reduce the capacity of that lead acid battery. So that is not the case with lithium. So they can be quick charged. The technology's new, so the anticipation is next roll. The price may more than likely will not go up. It may potentially go down, as with any new technology. Something else that we've taken into consideration is the energy savings. So with the lithium car, we got calculators from each of the 3 manufacturers and did our own due diligence and got some information from LUB so we could get the most accurate assessment possible. So we started with a number of $7,000 per facility per year, and now we're up to $10,000 per facility for yield that we anticipate savings for energy. And the reason being is it takes 3 to 5 hours to charge a lithium car versus 10 to 12 for a lead acid. In addition to the fact that you want to charge more, want to charge as frequently. So it charges more quickly, don't have to charge as frequent. We anticipate we're going to get 45 to 54 holes, no problem. We looked at the gasoline option, which we knew would be difficult to navigate and not very well received from our membership because of the noise and the fumes. And in the process of doing so, we also uncovered that the total cost of ownership is more. So gas is not an option. We were going to have to purchase fuel tanks for Tenacity and Kahidi, and the repair and maintenance is ongoing year-round. So ultimately, we'll have better cars with more standard options, better golf experience, premium seats, USB ports, coolers. Some of the manufacturer recommended you get 2 options, 2 accessories for free. Instead of having 2 divot pails, one on each side, we'll have 2 divot pails on one side and a cooler on the other side, which will help with our ongoing efforts to have more synergism with AWE and F&B. So at the end of the day, ultimately what we've come up with is a recommendation that we move forward with a 5-year operating lease for performance and appearance. and Club Car is the lowest as far as total cost of ownership is concerned. And it's really a no-brainer because when you look at it from a 5-year analysis or an 11-year analysis, which Kevin and Charlotte have done, it's a significant upgrade. It better supports our current business model, all the while reducing expenses and total out of pocket. So we're going to have a better golf cart and save money in the process.
Thanks, Chris.
Chris, before you go,
Yes, sir.
which one was it, when last time we got our new lease, one of them, we kicked out because of fire hazard. I assume that they've resolved that. Was that Easy Go or was that Club Car?
Yeah, that's not an issue. And it's interesting you brought that up because something I meant to mention is in 2018 was the last time we were in the market for purchasing golf cars, and lithium had just come into the marketplace.
Right.
So we didn't want to be the guinea pig. So it's proven they've gotten multiple generations, and we dug a little deeper into that. And the Club Car battery is a military grade, what is it?
Hermetically sealed.
There we go, that word. So if there's any issues, it's going to be internal in the battery casing. It's not going to be external, and there's been no issues.
So no safety issues at all?
No, sir.
Okay.
So just out of curiosity, what does that mean under additional? Sell ad space to cover expense.
All right. So that's just a note there because we're going to have access to additional technology. We're going to have free utilization of some additional technology for a period of time to determine whether or not it's viable for us moving forward. So that would be the Visage package with Club Car, which is they've got multiple modules with respect to fleet control, your GPS, your golf experience piece, some F&B transactions, some marketing elements. So we're going to have free utilization of that for a year. And we'll be able to gauge whether or not that's something we'll move forward with in the future. And there's going to be some different vehicles we're going to pursue for how to pay for it because there'll be some marketing and advertising opportunities.
Clayton, are all of our golf cart barns sprinkled? No. And should they be?
It would hurt, but I mean, that's where we gotta decide if it's worth the cost.
Well, if you have a fire in a cart barn at Tenacity, you've lost the whole clubhouse.
Yeah.
That is something we are getting an estimate on.
Okay.
But again, that's why we went through the due diligence to circle back. with
I
Club Car
understand,
and
and lithium batteries are a lot safer than they used to be. But they used to bring down airplanes.
Yeah, but again, we've asked those questions, and we're very comfortable.
Okay, thank you, Chris. To summarize the financial side of this, obviously with the Club Car Tempo Connect Lithium, Chris is proposing 180 carts, so roughly 60 at each course, so one-for-one replacement. The 5-year capital budget that we've got, both in the 2021 budget and the 10-year plan, out of the next 5 years, with those scheduled replacements, we have just under $1.1 million in capital for carts and battery replacements. The operating lease commitment is roughly $150,000 a year for 5 years. So that works out to be $750,000 over 5 years. So the 5-year savings is roughly $330,000, so about $66,000 a year in savings with a better product. So what Chris was talking about, I think it's key. You really have kind of a, what? It's not in that.
You can't move it.
So it's kind of a win-win-win, where it frees up capital from the 2021. It frees up capital from the 5-year plan. From a P&L perspective for 2021, obviously the lease payments would start upon delivery of the vehicles. Chris is pretty confident that Club Car will do its best to replace all of these quickly. And in the interim, we'll leave the best of what we have so we don't diminish the golf experience for anyone going forward. But from a P&L perspective, We'll have about 90,000 that kicks in 2021 in a lease payment. We will, with that $400,000 and $400, have about $150,000 gain on the disposal of the existing carts. So that will flow through our 2021 P&L as well. And then Chris talked about, we get roughly 10,000 a year in energy savings alone, 10 at each course. Obviously, you need to prorate that, for the timing of getting the carts. But from an overall 2021 perspective, it's really P&L neutral. And from a cash flow, what he's proposing is really the lowest cash flow option. And Charlotte modeled out all three vendors, looking at, lead, lithium, and gas, when that was an option. So Chris is, confident in recommending the lithium option, and we fully support that from a finance perspective. And on Friday, the Finance Advisory Committee recommended that as well. And obviously, Golf Advisory Committee, Howard Higbee has been a huge help in working with Finance and Chris to really do the analysis behind this recommendation.
Okay, so there will be two motions required for this project. The first one will be about the operating lease, and the second one will be about the disposal of POA assets. So as regard to the operating lease, I need a motion to authorize the TVPOA Chief Executive Officer to enter into a 5-year operating lease on behalf of TVPOA with VGM Financial Services representing Club Car for the leasing of 180 golf carts. Note that this is a complete replacement of all TVPOA golf carts. Second. You're the second? No, you had your hand up first. I'm sorry, Marty. You gotta be quicker.
I'm not loud enough. I gotta get louder.
Yeah.
Okay, discussion. There being no discussion, all in favor? 7-0. The second motion would be to authorize the TVPOA CEO to dispose of 182 TVPOA-owned golf cart assets for the trade-in value of $400,400 as part of the financing arrangement for the operating lease for new golf carts with BGM Financial Services.
So moved.
Marty, who's the second?
Second.
Sue? Discussion? I think you guys are all worn out.
It won't be sad to see them go.
No.
So, all in favor? 7-0.
I would just like to thank Chris and the committee for the work. I know they did hours of work on this, and appreciate you being so diligent and giving us a good solution.
Yeah, and as well, your golf committee, you guys invited me over as your liaison and rode around, and if you ever get a chance to ride in the new gas cart, they are unbelievably quiet. But to a golf advisory committee member, the exhaust that gets sucked up as you drive along the golf course is just a stank you don't want to be around. It stinks bad. You just can't get away from it, downwind, into the wind, or otherwise.
The gas ones?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
Oh, I thought you meant, I was like, what are you talking about?
Now, they
No,
evaluated,
but you hear our gas golf cart now that you played that's owned by a villager, sounds nothing like that. Unbelievably quiet. And you would think they would pull hills, go down there, which they probably would. But
Kevin, do you have anything else?
no,
I'm
not
just gonna
finished
cut
yet.
him off for now.
I have a quick question. On the pictures that were on the slide, the discovery process, are any of those, do any of those look like the carts we're going to be? The one on the far right?
Correct. It won't be that color or seat option, but that is that model car.
Are they
Can we
gonna,
talk about that seat option?
We've got, you're gonna like it. Just trust me.
are they gonna be Elon Musk type vehicles?
You did actually see in the Wall Street Journal the other day that Elon Musk has given himself a new title. He's now the techno king
there you go.
of Tesla.
Yeah,
and his CFO is the master of coin.
I can tell you in those cars he produces, you push on that gas and it's
He can call it whatever he wants.
pops you back.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. I just have 2 slides left, and I'll make it very brief. This one is just a kind of the running total of all the capital that's been approved to date. I know we're just getting started with the year and kind of getting back on track with some of these requests. As we mentioned before, we did have the Wellness Center roof soffit and fascia that was approved and authorized last time. That whole contract has been worked through with Mr. Stevens, and Clayton tells me that that work is going to be starting very shortly. So we'll have an actual spend against that authorized soon. The board today approved all the budgeted items as noted. I put $190,000 in here for that net effect of the golf lease, since there's a lot of puts and takes between the capital and maintenance. So overall, the projects that the board has approved to date is $518,000 versus a budget of $520,000. So we're basically right at budget so far. And obviously, capital remaining to be authorized is still quite a bit, and we'll work through that as we go along.
Okay.
Finally, the cash flow check. Charlotte talked about the net income. The year-to-date variance so far is just under $1.2 million. So the projected net income on paper at this point is $1,672,000. Obviously, depreciation, it's been early, and we're basically right there. CapEx, as I just talked about, we're off by $2,200. So net cash flow works out to be just under $39,000 as a variance year to date, and that'll obviously change quite a bit as we get into the year. Any questions?
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the last piece of our agenda, which is other. Do we have any comments from outside?
We do have a question from outside, and it goes back to when Clayton was talking about the RV storage. And I don't think it's probably a question that you can answer today, except for in relation to the fact that you only have, didn't you say you only have 9 people left on your waiting list?
No, we have not.
Oh, I thought you said 9 people left on your waiting list. Okay, so Ken is asking if you have any metrics on the wait list, as in how long people have been on the list, if you have an idea of not, those who have been there for less than 6 months, for less than a year, so. Okay, does Holly keep that list? Do you know if she probably puts a date that they get on there, so it would be something that we could come up with if necessary. Yeah, so there you go, Ken. There's your answer. We'll find out.
You sound like the White House press secretary.
We'll circle back to that.
We'll circle back to you. Okay, so that moves us to the other part of our agenda.
I have to give my embarrassing other, since we did that in a public meeting.
Well, if you'd like, I won't force you to do it.
Well, I think it's important. I think it's important because I did misspeak, and it wasn't just a little bit, it was a lot. So, as I did during our executive session today, I had to call myself out on the fact that I misspoke during the, when Sue was giving the Asian carp update during the February meeting. When I think of Asian carp infesting our beautiful Tellico Lake, I guess I can't get the image out of my mind of hundreds of thousands of these invasive fish. And so perhaps that's the reason I misspoke about the number of fish that have been tagged. As you can imagine, it would be a very tall order to tag 400,000 fish, but much more manageable to tag and monitor 400 fish. So that one little word makes a huge difference. So I did send to the connection a connection correction, as it were, because we got some additional and accurate information from the TVA provided by Dennis Baxter, who is the manager of River and Reservoir Compliance Monitoring. And he says this: while the TVA assists in monitoring efforts when they can, the Fish and Wildlife Service is leading the multi-agency carp deterrent efforts. It was Tennessee Technical and Murray State Universities who tagged more than 100 silver carp in Kentucky Lake and more in Pickwick last year. There are more than 400 Asian carp tagged as of last year, and even more were tagged in February and are being tagged this month. So state biologists in Kentucky and Tennessee track those carp movements via acoustic transmitters placed throughout the Ohio and Tennessee River basins. Underwater acoustic telemetry allows researchers to determine which way the fish are headed. So as of 2020, of the total number of fish found around Pickwick Dam, half moved back downstream, and that was the good news that I shared with you last month. So that information has been sent to the Connection. I apologize for misspeaking, didn't even realize I had until I saw the article in the Connection. I was like, wait a minute, that's a lot of fish. So there you go.
Well, it's
There's my
kind of
contrition.
like a fisherman's fish story, right?
Exactly, it was definitely a fish story, and I apologize for that. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? I'm sorry.
Rick, I can't hear. We need a microphone.
Jim, before you say anything else, our board member online can't hear you if you're not speaking
You've gotta
into a
come up to the
mic.
microphone.
All righty.
Thank you. Yes, if we could just pass the folks here, I appreciate it.
This is Jim Reynolds, Steve, a member of the audience, who is sharing some information with us, and he will be on a microphone shortly.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, Carl. You got more?
Good afternoon. I represent.
You got to come up to the microphone.
Sir,
Do you have
maybe it's
another one?
mobile here.
Do you have another one? You're short over
It's all
here.
right.
I do not,
I'll
sorry.
catch up later.
Yeah. I represent a small group of people, including Dr. Bart Margoshes, Dr. Susan Margoshes, his wife, and Steve Pravett, who is the lead pastor at the community church here. And I want to first commend the board for making the COVID vaccine sign-up so readily accessible. My wife signed up there. That was well done. We are concerned about several COVID deaths in the community. In addition to that, a good friend of mine recently got COVID and nearly died. Thanks to Park West Hospital's fine work, he's now home recovering. I was recently at Cleveland Clinic, and when I was there, I saw that at every entrance, they had masks that looked like this, placed in transparent boxes like that.
Well, it would be more visible on your table because that camera's looking directly at you.
First time here. Yeah, let me put that there. But masks do work, and the Cleveland Clinic, you know, is one example of how that they believe masks work. But besides that, there was a Vanderbilt study recently, that is page 2 of your handout, in which they compared Tennessee counties who emphasized mask usage against those that did not. And the COVID death rate was 1/2 in the counties that had emphasis as opposed to those that did not. Not only do masks protect us from, they protect us from these new COVID variants that are so contagious and also more deadly. And they prevent transmission of these new variants of COVID in general, which prevents the development of new variants, which is going to be a major problem in the months ahead, likely, if Italy is any measure of what we will have here. We are requesting funding for free masks with boxes like what we have here in 12 facilities at the main entrances there. And we project that that would cost about $4,000. You can get masks for 10 cents a piece at Amazon. These boxes are $18 a piece. We project that we would use about 100 different masks per week per station. If you multiply that out, you get about $3,300, counting the boxes here that are $18 a piece. We would round up to about $4,000 for tax and delivery. And $4,000 may sound like a lot, but if you compare that with my friend's ICU charge, which is going to run him about $10,000, and over 6 months, we think that putting free masks in 12 places, Kahiti, here, it would be here, the 3 restaurants, the 3 pro shops, the library, the welcome center, the wellness center, that would be the Chota Rec Center, and the board main offices. I think that's 12. We think that over 6 months, that would prevent about 30 cases of COVID. That would give you about 3 ICU visits that you would not have, and perhaps 1 death. So that's what we're asking, and we hope you'll follow Cleveland Clinic's example and consider our request to do that. Questions?
Any questions?
Just for understanding here, so $18 a box.
Your mic on. Okay. Just to clarify, and I'm not being argumentative, I've got masks in my pocket, I've got masks there. My wife and I have boxes of masks in our car in our back door. We wear masks diligently, and whether I wear a mask because I want to prevent, or whether I want to receive, or whether I just don't want to be socially ostracized is all up to me. But for my edification here, you're asking the POA board to spend $4,000 of property owners' money to buy them a mask. Because see, our income is from the property owner themselves. So we're going to buy a property owner a mask to put at a restaurant that a property owner is going to put on their face that I bought for them.
That's correct, and I would say back to that I think the ticket for long-term economic prosperity in this community is to control COVID. Surely that's clear from what we've...
Do not disagree.
Yes. So this money would be to benefit the village. It's not a lot of money either, $4,000.
Push it down at the base.
I'm pushing it all over.
There you
No,
go.
and I do not disagree. The long-term savings of being in a hospital, the issues with my wife. I just wanted to make sure, because we're being broadcast here, and the property owners are watching, that somebody on this board is aware that we're being asked as property owners to buy something that I'm going to give a property owner that I've already got in my pocket. That's my point. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm telling the public that I understand that we're being asked to give money to buy something that they already have.
I would say that not all of our property owners have masks.
And that's their choice.
It certainly is, but
Right.
if you forget one, there it is when you walk in the building.
Right, understood.
And protecting the whole community from COVID is quite valuable.
Not arguing.
economically. Yes. Other questions?
Any other questions? Jim, we'll take it under advisement, and we'll give you a decision.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time. Yes.
Is there anything else to be brought to the attention of the board? If that's true, we're adjourned.
Bye.
I was just gonna check online.